Excellent. Well, first off, thanks everyone. I know Friday at 10 a.m. is sometimes a early start to a Friday morning for those that are in the Eastern Standard Time. I know in other parts of the country it's even earlier. So appreciate you taking the time today. My name is Jill Berea, and I know you've probably been getting some emails from me. I work in the Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement that sits traditionally in 606 Kent. We are working remotely, as you know, but still very much able and would be delighted to advise and work with you all over these coming weeks. My role allows me to work with a number of different programs and partner with different faculty, which includes Dr. Mandy Caudill, which will be talking more today about the CU program. So with that, I'll introduce Mandy. She's a conservation ecologist and a research scientist, obviously having a background in sustainable agriculture. I always like to share that she also has a strong background in coffee, which I will be drinking throughout this experience. I'm sure you hear quite often, Mandy. And has taught the CU New York program for a number of years now, in focusing, her background focuses on courses related to agroecology, coffee, and sustainable agriculture. So with that, she'll give an overview of the program. I will then finalize some details regarding the application, and we will definitely have time for questions at the end. I'm sure there will be some. So with that, Mandy, feel free to start.
Great, thanks, Jill. So my name is Mandy Caudill. I've been teaching this course for the past 4 years, and I think we've had it running for the past 5. So it's agroecology and food systems. And basically, we're looking at agriculture through the lens of ecology and environmental science. And so this is a very experiential class. So we do have lectures, but then we're also outside a whole bunch in the summer, which is super nice. So I like to think of the course in kind of 3 different parts. The first part, or one of the parts, is the lectures. So that's the content. That's where we talk about ecology and environmental science and how that relates to agriculture. And then the other part is the site visits, where we go to all these different farms within the city. So we go to some urban gardens, we go to some rooftop gardens, and then outside of the city, where we go to some farms that are located about 2 hours from the city. And then the third part is our independent projects, where everybody has a chance to do whatever research they want to do as it relates to agriculture and agroecology, obviously. And so those are like the 3 main parts. And so with that, we have all these different course objectives. So one is the nitty-gritty science. So it is a 6-credit science class. So we do ecology, bring in environmental science. We talk a lot about sustainability as well as a topic. Is there such thing as sustainable agriculture? What does it mean? How do we measure it? What does it look like? Then we get to be outside and go to farms in the city and outside of the city. And then these research projects are also a big part of the class, but I don't want you to feel intimidated by it. It's something where we will hold your hand throughout. So at the very beginning, I ask you to give me like 3 ideas that you're interested in, and then we work with you to figure out what's feasible, how can you collect that data, and just help you figure out the best way to go about doing this independent project. And it can be whatever you want, which is really cool. It's a chance for you to dig in a little bit deeper into your own specific interests. And then we also learn how to analyze data. And I know statistics is often a scary word for a lot of people, but you don't have to be scared of it. We're not going to get into it really deeply, but I do want you to be able to look at articles and understand what a p-value is and understand the importance of analyzing this data. So we'll do a lot of that with our lab exercises as well. So you'll have a lot of exposure to it. And then lastly, at the very end of class, you'll give a presentation on your final project, and a paper will be associated with that as well. So just presenting your findings and how you went about collecting your data. And then I also like to have a couple of different writing assignments. So we have 3 blogs that are due throughout the class, and this just gives you a chance to really digest all of the things that you're learning, and kind of take a moment and be able to express some of that in writing. And then we have our labs and the final report. So there's a lot going on in our 6 weeks together. So our site visits are a crucial part of this class. And within the site visits, we collect data for our labs. And we get to talk to the farmers and we get to talk to the people that work there and really get to be in the farms and look at the plants and understand their interactions and understand some of the challenges of farming in this region as well. So here's a couple of pictures of some of the places that we go to. And then for our labs, we get to dig in the dirt, collect soil samples, we look at pollinators, we do some mapping. We go to one site that has a lot of compost that we're able to really understand the science behind that. And yeah, so that part I think is a lot of fun. And it's a way for us to take what we're learning in the classroom and then apply it to real world scenarios. And so here are just some pictures that is so nice to look at on a day like today. So this is Rise and Root Farm. This is a farm that's owned by Karen Washington. So if you're into social justice, especially in terms of food, you'll know the name Karen Washington, and we get to speak with her, which is a real honor. And then we also go to, and this is just another example, Blooming Hill Farms with Guy Jones, who is a character, to say the least. I will just leave it at that, and you guys can see when you get to meet him on the class. And then we also go to Stone Barn Center, which a lot of people have heard of. So this is the farm that's partially run by Dan Barber. He's the chef that owns Blue Hill. So it's a really integrated, sustainable farm, and we get to speak to the lead farmer there. It's a really amazing place to go, and it's just right outside the city. And so that's another one of our site visits. And here's an example of a community garden that's in East New York, which is in Brooklyn, but it's a good like hour and a half subway ride from Columbia. And we get to talk to the volunteers there and understand what their purpose is and what they're doing with their community garden. And there's some really cool stuff that goes on. And then another example is just kind of different from those other examples is hydroponic farming. So Gotham Greens is a good example of this. This is a site that is on top of a Whole Foods in Brooklyn. So we don't get to go inside because hydroponic farming is very sterilized. But there are windows and we sit and we get the tour like through the windows there and get an idea of what happens with hydroponic farming. And then we get to talk about it afterwards and kind of compare what that looks like to our more rural farms and more traditional farming. And so just some examples of some projects that have been done in the past. So a lot of people will look at some of the differences between socioeconomics and food within New York. So, we're in this amazing city that has such a huge diversity of people and places, and it's a great lab for us to be able to pull data from. So a lot of students will compare things like the number of grocery stores within a certain radius, looking at socioeconomic conditions, and does that influence the amount of healthy food. So this last one, a student a couple of years ago looked at food apartheid by comparing the availability and variety of kale in some different neighborhoods. We talk about sustainability and how to measure that. So another student looked at some large scale bakeries and small scale bakeries and compared sustainability metrics between those. There's urban farms that we visit and rural farms. So there's data that can be collected when we go to each of those different types of farms. So there's a lot. There's an infinite amount of different projects that the students have done, and everybody has really great ideas. And it's one of the things that I've noticed over the years is the students come with these amazing projects that they want to do, but a lot of times some of them are like way out of scale, like they're more like master level or like PhD level, which is great. And there's different ways that we can kind of scale that back. So I like to think of these as pilot projects. So if you have a great idea that you want to investigate more into, we'll help you figure out how to do that in the amount of time that we have and the resources that are available. So it's a very iterative process, and you don't have to worry too much about not knowing how to do it or not having an idea that you think is feasible, because that's part of what we do in the class. And so our weeks are varied, and none of them look the same. So we do a lot of different things throughout the day. So this is just an example of what a schedule could look like. So we have you for 6 weeks, 5 days a week. And in lecture, if we have a class like the example here for Monday, this is one that is pretty much all takes place within a classroom. So we'll have a lecture in the morning, and then you guys will be released for lunch. And then you'll come back and have recitation or lab. So with the TAs, we set aside time for you to work on your labs with them. And so they'll walk you through how to do the analysis. And then it's time for you to ask questions. And then we have a lot of guest lectures as well from different people within the food world. And then sometimes we'll do a lecture in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we'll do some site visits that are more local in the city. And then other days we are out in the field all day long. So we'll leave campus at 8:20, get on a bus, and we'll go to a farm and do a tour, talk to the farmer, do a lab, and we're there until the afternoon, and then the bus drops us back off at 5. So none of the weeks look the same, which is nice. It's nice to kind of keep things mixed, and that's about it. So the class it runs for 6 weeks, 5 days a week. We do try to set aside time with the TAs for you guys to do your homework, but there is outside reading and homework assignments as well that you'll do at night. A lot of the students in the past have taken advantage of the time on the bus, if you don't get car sick, to do some of the reading or some of the homework, because we usually go to places that are about a 2 hour, like a 1.5 to 2 hour bus ride outside of the city. So there's a little bit of time left there. So this class is also a lesson in time management and how to figure out how to fit everything in a small amount of time. And I think that's it for me. We'll take questions at the end, so feel free to ask whatever you want. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. And I'll turn it over to you, Jill.
Sure. So thanks so much for the overview. It's really exciting to see, especially to your point, this time of year with the gloominess and some green spaces, that's for sure. So just want to highlight just some updates regarding the costs as well as the application process. And then as Mandy had said, we'll definitely take time at the end for questions. So the program fee has been finalized just as of this week. It still needs to be approved by the Board of Trustees, but it was published on our website this week at $9,000. And that is what is considered to be a program fee, which includes the tuition, partial meals, and any program transportation for the course of the experience. Does not obviously include housing or the meals on campus should you be released for lunch for an hour to then come back. Any medical insurance, visas, etc. So feel free to take a look on the website further. Any additional out-of-pocket expenses, we always just put this in just as to give you an estimate of approximately what additional costs could be associated with the experience. As you can imagine, we also run a lot of global programs, so it's kind of how we have why there's so many details regarding different parts of the fees. But this is beyond the tuition piece and minimal books and course fees. This could look very similar to what you find on campus. For those that do pay per point on campus, this is different the way that the summer is run. And so 9,000 does include the 6 credits for this program experience. So just wanted to give you a heads up. I will also share that I know that, there are some opportunities for courses that are a part of the Columbia College summer plan, and this program is still a cost associated experience. You would still be paying the cost for the experience. And then Mandy, if you want to go to the next slide, that would be great. I think down in the lower left hand, they're perfect. So just wanted to give you a reminder. So when you go to the CU New York City application webpage, you'll see a start your application button. The deadline this year is March 1. It hopefully isn't too intensive of an application process, a basic overview of your interest in the experience, a transcript. You do need a recommendation from a faculty member or an instructor that you've had in the past, somebody that can just speak to your academic qualifications. So I do help very much with the whole application process. So if there's anything that's unclear or you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me throughout the course of the application process. Perfect. Go to the next slide. Great. And so just as a reminder, so the deadline this year is March 1. We put the interview process in there. We don't expect there to be a formalized process, but know that, should there be any additional outreach that needs to be done with students to check in on their eligibility for the program, that would be done through March. And we do hope to have admissions decisions some point in April. I will address, as you can imagine, in a lot of ways, the context and the way in which we're working this year, it looks quite different than what we have found in past years. So know that we appreciate your patience as we finalize timelines and acceptance details and that sort of thing. But I will very much be in touch with you as we move forward with this process. And then the last page. Great. So at this point, Mindy, if you want to take the slides off, I'll stop the recording and then we can open it up for questions.